The first light of dawn crept through the reinforced glass of the United Nations headquarters, casting long shadows across the World Leadership Summit. Holographic projections shimmered with an otherworldly precision, transforming the central chamber into a landscape of crystalline forms and impossible geometries. The Galactic Confederation's delegation stood, or perhaps hovered, at the center of the room. Their bodies were like living sculptures of light and crystalline structure, shifting and refracting with each subtle movement. The lead diplomat, a being known as Verix, represented a civilization millions of years older than human existence. Humanity has reached a critical junction, Verix announced, his voice a modulated frequency that seemed to bypass ears and resonate directly within the minds of those present. Your technological progression, while marginally impressive, presents significant risks to the established galactic order. Secretary General Elena Rodriguez, a woman who had risen through diplomatic ranks with a combination of brilliant strategy and unwavering determination, listened carefully. Her background in complex systems theory gave her insights that most politicians lacked. Where others saw an alien ultimatum, she saw a complex problem waiting to be solved. Beside her, Marcus Chen, her chief strategic advisor, maintained a calm exterior. His network of global innovators and problem solvers was already receiving encrypted communications, preparing for what was to come. The Confederation's proposal was deceptively simple. Humanity would be required to completely restructure its technological infrastructure, adopt standardized communication protocols, submit to comprehensive genetic and cultural assessments, limit independent technological development, integrate into the existing galactic administrative framework. Failure to comply would result in total isolation. No trade agreements, no technological exchanges, no access to galactic communication networks. Essentially, a death sentence for a species on the brink of true interstellar capability. Your current trajectory threatens multiple established civilizations, Verix continued. Humanity's unpredictable nature and rapid technological progression create systemic instabilities. We offer a path of controlled integration or complete disconnection. The room fell silent. Diplomats exchanged worried glances. Economic advisors calculated the potential impacts. Military strategists ran quick simulations. Elena recognized the true nature of the threat. This wasn't just about control. It was about suppressing potential. The Galactic Confederation feared what humanity might become if left unchecked. Marcus's communication device, a quantum-encrypted marvel of human engineering, vibrated softly. A network of researchers, innovators, and strategic thinkers was already mapping potential responses. Not panic, not submission. Something entirely different. We require an immediate response, Verix stated, the crystalline structure of his form pulsing with an implied threat. Your species has 48 standard galactic cycles to comply. 48 cycles, approximately 3 Earth months. In the back of the chamber, a young researcher named Dr. Kamal Noack caught Elena's eye. He represented a new generation of human thinkers, those who saw challenges as opportunities, constraints as puzzles to be solved. The holographic display shifted, showing potential scenarios of human integration. Sanitized representations of cultural absorption, technological standardization, the complete neutralization of human unique potential. What the Confederation didn't understand was the fundamental nature of human adaptability. Every constraint was an invitation to innovate, every limitation a challenge to be overcome. Elena's mind was already 3 steps ahead. While politicians would debate, while military strategists would calculate, she and those like her were preparing something unexpected. The impossible ultimatum was not a sentence of doom. It was an opportunity. Marcus leaned closer, his voice a barely audible whisper. They have no idea what's coming. Elena allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The game was about to change. The first ships moved like whispers in the night, not with the panic of retreat, but with the precision of a carefully orchestrated symphony. Dr. Kamil Nowak watched from the observation deck of the research vessel Horizon, his fingers tracing the holographic displays that tracked hundreds of simultaneous departures. Each point of light represented more than a ship. It represented human potential in motion. The exodus began in unexpected places. Technology clusters in Bangalore started converting industrial equipment into modular habitat modules. Deep-sea research stations in the Pacific repurposed underwater exploration vessels. Private space companies in New Mexico transformed satellite launch platforms into interstellar transport cores. Networks activated with lightning speed. A researcher in Stockholm shared a breakthrough in radiation shielding. Within hours, the design was modified, improved, and distributed across multiple departure points. An engineer in Sao Paulo developed a revolutionary recycling system for closed-environment habitats. By the next day, teams from Cape Town to Seoul had integrated and enhanced the design. This was no random flight. This was a calculated dispersal of human knowledge, creativity, and potential. Marcus Chen's global communication network proved to be the invisible skeleton of the operation. What looked like chaos to outside observers was actually a meticulously planned movement. Each departure was a carefully calculated node in a larger living system. In orbit, modified cargo ships transformed before the eyes of bewildered space traffic controllers. Industrial platforms became habitat modules. Research vessels reconfigured their internal structures. Private spacecraft that once seemed like rich people's toys now revealed themselves as sophisticated migration vessels. "We're not running," Kamil muttered to himself, studying the data streams. "We're expanding." The first wave carried humanity's most critical resources, not just people, but knowledge. Entire research archives compressed into quantum data cores, cultural repositories that captured the essence of human creativity. Seed banks containing genetic diversity, advanced fabrication tools that could rebuild civilization from nearly nothing. Families prepared with a mixture of excitement and calculated preparation. They weren't refugees. They were pioneers. In Mumbai, a group of biotechnology researchers packed portable labs that could generate medical solutions in environments previously considered impossible. A team from MIT brought modular computing systems that could adapt to multiple planetary conditions. Agricultural specialists from Kenya carried seed technologies that could transform barren landscapes into productive ecosystems. The Galactic Confederation's monitoring systems struggled to comprehend the movement. Their centralized intelligence couldn't process the distributed nature of human migration. Where they expected panic, they found strategy. Where they anticipated collapse, they'd witnessed innovation. Orbital tracking stations recorded the most unusual migration in recorded galactic history. Ships move not in straight lines, but in complex, interconnected patterns. Each vessel maintained communication with multiple networks, creating a living, breathing system of human potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez coordinated from a command center that looked more like a collaborative research space than a traditional control room. Holographic displays showed real-time adaptations, technological exchanges, and strategic positioning. "They're creating a network," she explained to a group of international observers. "Not just a migration. A living, adaptive system." The ships carried more than equipment and people. They carried hope, creativity, the fundamental human capacity to transform challenges into opportunities. Private enterprises, academic institutions, research collectives, all moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional understanding of organizational movement. A quantum physicist in Berlin could communicate instantaneously with a materials engineer in Tokyo, sharing insights that would reshape their habitat designs. By the time the Galactic Confederation realized the true nature of the movement, humanity had already spread across multiple star systems. What was meant to be a limitation had become an expansion. Kamil smiled, watching the final departure sequences. "We're not leaving," he said softly. "We're becoming something entirely new." The Great Departure was more than a migration. It was an evolution. The first human settlement emerged from the frozen twilight of a distant moon like a living organism, Metallic modules unfolded, connected, and transformed, not through mechanical precision, but with an almost organic fluidity that would have astonished any external observer. Dr. Camilo Nowak watched through the reinforced observation port as the habitat took shape. What had begun as a collection of modular units was becoming something far more complex. Hydroponic gardens sprouted within transparent domes. Energy collectors spread like silvery tendrils across the moon's harsh landscape. Each component adapted, shifted, and responded to the environment with an intelligence that blurred the line between engineering and evolution. The settlement on Kepler 452 bits was their most ambitious project. Where traditional colonization required massive, fixed infrastructure, humans created something entirely different. Modular units could expand, contract, and reconfigure based on immediate needs. A research lab could transform into a community center. Living quarters could adjust their internal environment with millisecond precision. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's adaptive systems theory had transformed from academic concept to practical survival strategy. Each settlement became a living experiment in human potential. On the asteroid belt of the Orion sector, another group of settlers demonstrated extraordinary creativity. What appeared to be a mining outpost was actually a sophisticated ecosystem. Recycling systems so efficient that nearly 99.8% of all resources were continuously reused. Atmospheric processors that could transform toxic gases into breathable air and useful materials. A team of Brazilian environmental engineers developed a breakthrough in biomimetic design. Inspired by the root systems of Amazon rainforest plants, they created habitat structures that could literally grow and adapt. Walls that could self-repair. Energy systems that learned and optimized themselves. Marcus Chen's global network proved crucial. Despite being spread across multiple star systems, human settlements maintained an unprecedented level of collaborative communication. A breakthrough in water reclamation technology developed on one settlement would be analyzed, improved, and distributed across multiple outposts within hours. The most surprising developments came from unexpected sources. A group of artists turned habitat design into a form of living art. Their modules weren't just functional. They were beautiful. Structures that changed color based on internal emotional states. Living spaces that could reconfigure to support different types of social interactions. On a frozen moon orbiting a gas giant, a settlement led by Dr. Priya Sharma demonstrated the true meaning of adaptive innovation. Traditional agriculture was impossible, so they created something entirely new. Vertical farming systems that used quantum-enhanced light spectrums. Genetic adaptations that allowed crops to grow in near-zero gravity with minimal resources. Each settlement became a node of innovation, each outpost a living laboratory. The communication networks were equally revolutionary. Quantum entanglement communication systems allowed near-instantaneous information exchange across impossible distances. A researcher in one settlement could collaborate in real time with colleagues spread across multiple star systems. What the Galactic Confederation had seen as a primitive species was revealing itself to be something entirely different. Humans didn't just adapt to environments. They transformed them. They didn't just survive. They reimagined the very concept of survival. On the surface of a rocky planet with atmospheric conditions that would crush most known life forms, a small human settlement thrived. Protective suits became adaptive second skins. Habitat modules that could withstand extreme pressure and temperature variations, energy systems that drew power from the planet's unique geological activities. Dr. Nowak compiled the initial reports, a sense of wonder spreading through his research team. They weren't just creating settlements. They were developing an entirely new approach to existence. We're not just exploring space, he told his team. We're learning how to become part of it. The adapted frontiers were more than physical locations. They were living proof of human potential, a testament to creativity, resilience, and the extraordinary capacity to transform challenges into opportunities. The first signs of trouble emerged in the observation chambers of the Galactic Confederation's Central Research Complex. Holographic displays flickered with data that defied every known predictive model. Senior analyst Ferrix, a being who had studied countless emerging civilizations, felt something unprecedented: confusion. The human settlements were not just surviving. They were thriving in ways that challenged fundamental understanding of biological and technological adaptation. On a methane-rich moon that should have been instantly fatal to carbon-based life, a human research station had not only established a permanent presence, but was actively transforming the environment. Dr. Kamil Nowak's breakthrough in adaptive environmental processing turned toxic atmospheric gases into breathable mixtures and usable energy. Where other species would have required generations of terraforming, humans had developed a solution in months. Another research team discovered a human outpost orbiting a pulsar, a location previously considered uninhabitable. Their energy collection systems drew power directly from the pulsar's intense electromagnetic radiation. What should have been a death sentence became a source of unprecedented power generation. The communication networks were equally baffling. Quantum entanglement communication systems developed by human researchers allowed instantaneous information exchange across distances that should have required centuries of technological development. A researcher in one settlement could collaborate in real time with colleagues spread across multiple star systems, sharing complex data with a speed and efficiency that stunned alien observers. On a research vessel monitoring human activities, lead scientist Xalek reviewed the latest data streams. The humans were not just adapting. They were reimagining the very concept of adaptation. A settlement in the Kepler system demonstrated a medical breakthrough that challenged everything known about biological resilience. Their genetic modification techniques allowed humans to develop temporary physiological adaptations. Researchers could modify their body chemistry to withstand extreme radiation, low gravity, or toxic atmospheric conditions, not through external protection, but through internal transformation. Marcus Chen's global network continued to prove its extraordinary capability. What appeared to be isolated settlements were actually part of a living, breathing system of innovation. A breakthrough in materials science developed on one settlement would be analyzed, improved, and distributed across multiple outposts within hours. The most surprising developments came from unexpected intersections of human creativity. Artists collaborated with engineers to develop habitat designs that were both functional and aesthetically remarkable. Psychological researchers worked with quantum physicists to create living spaces that could adapt to emotional and cognitive needs. A small research team led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez developed a predictive modeling system that could anticipate and respond to environmental changes with unprecedented accuracy. Their algorithms didn't just predict, they learned and evolved in real time. The Galactic Confederation's monitoring systems struggled to comprehend the human approach. Their centralized intelligence couldn't process the distributed, adaptive nature of human innovation. Where they expected limitations, they found endless potential. On a rocky planet with atmospheric conditions that would crush most known life forms, a human settlement not only survived but began to transform the environment. Protective technologies became living systems. Energy collectors adapted to the planet's unique geological activities. Communication networks expanded like neural pathways. Xalek compiled the initial reports, a growing sense of concern spreading through the research team. These were not the primitive species they had initially assessed. These were something entirely different. They're not just adapting, Xalek noted in the official report. They're rewriting the fundamental rules of adaptation. The miscalculation became increasingly clear. What the Galactic Confederation had seen as a potential threat was revealing itself to be a revolutionary approach to existence. Humans didn't just survive in new environments. They became part of them, transformed them, and expanded the very definition of possibility. As the data continued to stream in, one thing became abundantly clear. The universe had just encountered a species that would change everything. The breakthrough emerged from the most unexpected location. A converted mining platform orbiting a volatile gas giant in the outer reaches of the Kepler system. What had once been a resource extraction point had transformed into a living laboratory of human innovation. Dr. Priya Sharma stood before the holographic display, her eyes reflecting the intricate web of data streams that represented their latest discovery. The energy conversion technology they had developed was more than just a scientific achievement. It was a fundamental reimagining of power generation. Traditional galactic energy systems relied on complex fusion reactors and massive resource extraction. The human solution was elegantly simple and impossibly complex. They had developed a quantum adaptive energy network that could draw power from multiple sources simultaneously, converting even the most minute environmental energy into usable power. The platform's energy collectors worked like living organisms. Nano-engineered surfaces could absorb radiation, thermal differentials, electromagnetic waves, and even the subtle gravitational fluctuations of the nearby gas giant. What other species would consider background noise, humans transformed into a power source. Marcus Chen's global network went into overdrive. Within hours of the initial breakthrough, research teams across multiple settlements were analyzing, improving, and expanding the technology. Collaborative platforms allowed instantaneous knowledge sharing that made traditional research methods look painfully slow. On a settlement near the Orion Nebula, a team of materials scientists developed a breakthrough in adaptive construction materials, structures that could self-repair, shift their molecular composition in response to environmental challenges, and optimize their internal systems with machine learning algorithms. The communication networks became the true marvel. Quantum entanglement communication systems allowed researchers to collaborate in real time across impossible distances. A materials engineer in Buenos Aires could work simultaneously with a physicist in Beijing, sharing complex data with a speed and efficiency that defied previous technological limitations. Dr. Kamil Nowak's predictive modeling systems took the technological revolution to another level. Their algorithms didn't just analyze data. They learned, adapted, and predicted with an intelligence that blurred the line between technology and consciousness. The most surprising innovations came from unexpected collaborations. Artists worked with quantum physicists to develop communication technologies that could translate emotional states. Psychologists collaborated with engineering teams to create living spaces that could adapt to cognitive and emotional needs. A small research outpost in the asteroid belt developed a breakthrough in biological technological integration. Adaptive medical technologies that could modify human physiology at the cellular level. Not just protection from extreme environments, but actual transformation. The Galactic Confederation's research teams watched in growing bewilderment. Their monitoring systems struggled to categorize these developments. What they had dismissed as a primitive species was revealing itself to be something entirely unprecedented. On a settlement near a pulsar, researchers developed energy collection systems that could draw power directly from the intense electromagnetic radiation. What should have been a hostile environment became a source of unprecedented power generation. Elena Rodriguez's adaptive systems theory proved to be more than an academic concept. It was a blueprint for a new approach to technological development. Each settlement became a living laboratory, each outpost a node of innovative potential. The technological revolution wasn't just about individual breakthroughs. It was about a fundamentally different approach to innovation. Distributed, collaborative, adaptive. Zalek, the lead researcher monitoring human activities, compiled the latest reports with a growing sense of concern and fascination. These were not incremental improvements. This was a complete reimagining of technological development. They're not just advancing technology. Zalek noted in the official report, they're rewriting the fundamental rules of technological progression. As the data continued to stream in, one thing became increasingly clear. The human approach to technology was nothing short of revolutionary. They didn't just develop new technologies. They transformed the very concept of technological innovation. The universe was about to change, and humanity was leading the way. The first diplomatic ships of the Galactic Confederation approached with an air of calculated superiority. Sleek vessels that represented millennia of technological refinement, they carried representatives prepared to reassert control over the human settlements. What they found defied every strategic projection. The human outposts had no centralized authority to negotiate with, no single point of contact, no traditional governmental structure that could be manipulated or pressured. Each settlement was simultaneously independent and interconnected, a living network that adapted faster than any diplomatic protocol could anticipate. Captain Zalek of the Confederation Diplomatic Corps studied the holographic displays with growing frustration. Their standard intervention strategies collapsed before they could even be implemented. On the first contact point, a research settlement near a volatile pulsar, the diplomatic vessel found something entirely unexpected. Instead of a military installation or a governmental complex, they encountered a collaborative research center. Scientists, artists, engineers, and community organizers worked in a fluid, almost organic system of governance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the approach from a communication hub that looked more like a creative workspace than a traditional command center. Her team had prepared not for confrontation, but for communication. The Confederation ships attempted to establish standard communication protocols. They were met with a communication network so adaptive that it seemed to change faster than they could analyze. Quantum entanglement communication systems allowed instantaneous information exchange that made traditional diplomatic channels look prehistoric. Marcus Chen's global network proved to be the invisible infrastructure that defied traditional understanding. What appeared to be isolated settlements were actually part of a living, breathing system of collective intelligence. Each human settlement responded to the diplomatic approach differently, and yet with a unified underlying strategy. On one asteroid settlement, researchers engaged the diplomatic team in a complex scientific dialogue that systematically dismantled the Confederation's assumptions. Another outpost responded with an artistic presentation that communicated more complex information than any traditional diplomatic exchange. Dr. Kamal Noak's predictive modeling systems had anticipated this moment. The human approach was not about resistance. It was about transformation. The Confederation's military advisors prepared intervention strategies that quickly became obsolete. How do you apply traditional military pressure to a network with no central point? How do you negotiate with a collective that has no single leadership structure? Each settlement had developed unique adaptive capabilities. Some could literally reconfigure their physical structures within moments. Others had developed communication technologies that could redirect diplomatic probes before they could gather meaningful intelligence. On a settlement near the Orion Nebula, the diplomatic team encountered a truly unprecedented approach. The entire settlement seemed to communicate as a single organism. Individual researchers could instantaneously share complex information, making traditional interrogation techniques completely ineffective. Zalek's frustration grew with each failed interaction. The humans were not just resisting. They were fundamentally changing the nature of the interaction itself. The most sophisticated diplomatic algorithms developed over millennia of galactic interactions became useless. The human network learned and adapted faster than the Confederation could analyze. Every strategic approach was met with a response so unexpected that it rendered the original strategy meaningless. Dr. Priya Sharma led a team that developed real-time communication adapters that could translate not just language, but contextual and emotional nuance. Diplomatic exchanges became multi-layered conversations that went far beyond traditional communication methods. What the Confederation saw as a challenge, humans saw as an opportunity for understanding. Each interaction became a chance for mutual exploration, for breaking down fundamental assumptions about communication, governance, and collective intelligence. The diplomatic ships began to realize something profound. They were not dealing with a species to be controlled. They were encountering a completely new form of collective existence. As the initial contact phase concluded, one thing became abundantly clear. The rules of galactic interaction were about to change fundamentally, and humanity was leading the way. The shift began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Within the observation chambers of the Galactic Confederation, something unprecedented started to take shape, a growing recognition that challenged millennia of established thinking. Senior researcher Zalek compiled the latest data streams, a complex mixture of fascination and professional uncertainty filling the analysis chamber. The human settlements were no longer just an anomaly to be studied. They had become a phenomenon that demanded a complete reimagining of galactic potential. Research teams from multiple alien civilizations began studying human approaches with an intensity that bordered on academic obsession. What had begun as a mission of containment had transformed into the most significant scientific exploration in recent galactic history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper implications. This wasn't about technological superiority. It was about a fundamentally different approach to existence. On a research settlement near the Carina Nebula, a collaborative project emerged that epitomized this new understanding. Researchers from 3 different alien species worked alongside human teams, developing communication technologies that went beyond traditional linguistic barriers. They weren't just translating words, they were creating systems that could translate contextual and emotional nuance. Dr. Kamil Nowak's adaptive communication systems proved to be the breakthrough point. His team had developed technologies that could bridge not just language differences, but fundamental conceptual gaps between different species' ways of thinking. Marcus Chen's global network revealed itself as something far more profound than a communication infrastructure. It was a living system of collective intelligence that could adapt, learn, and evolve in real time. Alien researchers found themselves studying a form of distributed intelligence that challenged everything they understood about collective organization. The most surprising developments came from unexpected collaborative spaces. Artists worked with quantum physicists to develop communication platforms that could translate emotional states. Psychological researchers collaborated with engineers to create interaction systems that respected the fundamental dignity of different species' cognitive approaches. A settlement in the outer reaches of the Kepler system developed a breakthrough in cross-species collaborative research. Their approach wasn't about dominance or competition. It was about mutual exploration and understanding. His Alex research team discovered something truly remarkable. The human approach to interaction was fundamentally different from any known galactic civilization. Where other species saw boundaries, humans saw opportunities for connection. Where traditional diplomatic approaches sought to establish control, humans sought to create understanding. Dr. Priya Sharma led a team that developed adaptive cultural exchange programs. These weren't simple cultural translations. They were living systems that could help different species understand each other's fundamental perspectives, emotional landscapes, and ways of perceiving reality. The Galactic Confederation's research archives began to fill with reports that defied previous scientific understanding. Humans had not just adapted to new environments. They had developed an approach to existence that was fundamentally transformative. Collaborative research projects emerged that redefined scientific exploration. A joint expedition near the Orion Nebula saw researchers from multiple species working together in ways that broke down traditional disciplinary boundaries. An astronomer would work simultaneously with a poet, an engineer with a psychologist, creating solutions that no single perspective could have imagined. The transformation wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. Humans had introduced a new paradigm of thinking that valued diversity, adaptability, and collective potential. Alien civilizations that had spent millennia in relatively static cultural and technological states began to reassess their own approaches. The human model of distributed intelligence, collaborative innovation, and adaptive potential offered a new way of understanding collective progress. Elena Rodriguez reflected on the journey during a collaborative research session. We're not just exploring space, she told a group of researchers from different species. We're exploring the potential of collective intelligence. As the initial phase of understanding concluded, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had not just found a place in the galactic community. They had fundamentally transformed the very concept of what that community could be. The universe was about to enter a new era of exploration, understanding, and collective potential. And humanity was leading the way. The observation deck of the Galactic Confederation's Central Research Complex fell silent as the final reports came in. Holographic displays flickered with data that fundamentally challenged everything they thought they knew about technological and social evolution. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before an assembly of representatives from multiple alien civilizations. Her presentation was not a triumph, but an invitation, a demonstration of a completely new approach to collective potential. "We're not here to replace existing systems," she explained, her voice calm and precise. "We're here to demonstrate an alternative way of understanding progress, adaptation, and collective intelligence." The journey had been extraordinary. What began as a forced exodus had transformed into the most significant evolutionary leap in recent galactic history. Human settlements had become living laboratories of innovation, each one a node in a complex, adaptive network that defied traditional understanding. Dr. Kamil Nowak's adaptive communication systems had become the foundation of a new approach to interspecies interaction. These were not simple translation technologies. They were living systems that could bridge fundamental differences in perception, communication, and understanding. Marcus Chen's global network revealed itself as something far more profound than a communication infrastructure. It was a living demonstration of distributed intelligence, a model of collective organization that could adapt, learn, and evolve in real time. The settlements scattered across multiple star systems were more than just outposts. They were living experiments in human potential. Each one demonstrated a unique approach to survival, innovation, and collective problem-solving. On a research platform near the Carina Nebula, a collaborative project epitomized the new galactic paradigm. Researchers from multiple species worked together in ways that broke down traditional disciplinary and cultural boundaries. An astronomer would collaborate with a poet. An engineer would work alongside a psychologist. The solutions they developed were unlike anything previously imagined. Dr. Priya Sharma's adaptive cultural exchange programs had become a cornerstone of new interspecies understanding. These were not simple cultural translations. They were living systems that could help different species understand each other's fundamental perspectives, emotional landscapes, and ways of perceiving reality. The technological breakthroughs were extraordinary. Energy collection systems that could draw power from the most minute environmental fluctuations, adaptive habitat technologies that could transform hostile environments into living spaces, communication networks that could process and share complex information faster than any previous galactic technology. But the true revolution was not technological. It was philosophical. Humans had introduced a new paradigm of thinking that valued diversity, adaptability, and collective potential. Civilizations that had existed in relatively static cultural and technological states for millennia began to reassess their own approaches. The Galactic Confederation's research teams discovered something profound. The human approach was not about technological superiority. It was about a fundamentally different way of understanding existence, a model of collective intelligence that saw challenges as opportunities for mutual growth. Zalek, the senior researcher who had first monitored human activities, now led a collaborative research initiative that sought to understand the human approach. Their findings challenged everything they thought they knew about technological and social evolution. The settlements were not just surviving. They were transforming the very concept of what was possible. Each outpost was a living laboratory of innovation. Each interaction was an opportunity for mutual understanding. Elena Rodriguez reflected on the journey during a final presentation. "We're not just exploring space," she told the assembled representatives. "We're exploring the potential of collective intelligence. We're demonstrating that progress is not about domination, but about mutual understanding and collaborative potential." As the initial phase of galactic integration concluded, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had not just found a place in the galactic community. They had fundamentally transformed the very concept of what that community could be. The universe stood on the brink of a new era of exploration, understanding, and collective potential. And humanity was leading the way, not through force or technological superiority, but through an unprecedented approach to mutual understanding and collaborative growth. The Great Exodus had become something far more significant. It was an invitation to reimagine the very nature of progress, adaptation, and collective potential.